I stood on the warped wooden porch, the smell of diesel and damp wood thick in the air, my boots pressing into the uneven boards that had held years of my back-breaking labor. Noah, that was me, 27 years old, spent, unseen, the invisible backbone of a family that never noticed me. And that evening, Dad's voice cut through the hum of cicadas and a brewing storm like a whip. No rent, no roof. Pack your bags. The words didn't just wound, they shattered something inside me. I'd been holding together for decades. Years of patching leaks, calming tantrums, and carrying Derek's mess had all been for nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't flinch. I nodded, tightened my jacket, and let the dusk swallow me whole as I stepped off that porch. Each footfall on the creaking steps felt like a quiet protest, a beat of my own heart in the ruins of their neglect. For years I'd been the scaffolding of this family. Dawn brought the screaming of Derek's twins, little hands tugging at me, yanking my sleeves as he nursed a hangover from cheap bourbon. Midday was Mom's brittle voice barking orders. Fix the roof. Haul the firewood. Drive me to the clinic. And every night, Dad's growly sermons about wasted potential thundered across the trailer, his poker chips clattering like nails in a coffin. I wasn't their son. I wasn't their brother. I was a grunt, an invisible laborer of their lives. The trailer smelled of mildew, motor oil, and broken dreams. My 20s burned quietly, patching torn jackets, calming crying children, while Derek drifted through dive bars, light as smoke, leaving me to anchor the chaos. Every attempt to steal a moment for myself, a journal entry, a guitar riff, was pulled back into their orbit. Family's all that matters, Noah, Mom would mutter, eyes glued to the TV. Stepping up, Lucas, Dad's voice echoing in my skull. But I called it drowning. That evening, the storm was brewing and the air felt electric. Derek threw a glance at Dad, a spark of coded mischief I didn't catch until the hammer fell. Rent. It hit me like a sledgehammer through glass. Mom picking at her chipped nails. Derek hiding a smirk behind a cigarette. The twins kicking gravel, oblivious. They expected me to bend like always. Instead, something inside me snapped. The dam finally ruptured. I turned, boots thudding against the warped wood, my truck rattling under me, and drove into the encroaching dusk. The trailer, the smell, the noise, the suffocating weight of years faded in my rearview mirror. And then the text came. You'll crawl back. It burned like a fuse, not for me, but for them. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because Noah, the son they ignored, the backbone they exploited, was just getting started. As the trailer disappeared behind me in the rearview mirror, dust swirling in its wake, I didn't feel free. I felt a strange mixture of anger, grief, and clarity. For 27 years I had carried them all, every burden, every failure they refused to acknowledge, every small disaster they called family life. Derek's twins screaming at breakfast while he nursed his hangovers. Mom's brittle complaints about broken roofs, unpaid bills, or my wasted potential. Dad's growly lectures about how I'd never measure up. His voice echoing in my skull like an old record stuck on the worst track. I had buried myself in work and silence, in the unseen labor of someone who believed love meant sacrifice. And for what? The words "pack your bags" answered that question. As I drove through the small town I'd grown up in, memories flashed like broken streetlights, the evening spent patching. Derek's roof while he laughed with friends in the tavern. The nights soothing the twins after nightmares. My guitar a quiet companion in the dark, its strings worn smooth from late-night strumming. Every day a litany of chores, errands, and invisible labor, and always the same. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, only expectation. It had almost killed me, mentally, emotionally. But it hadn't. Because somewhere in all those years of servitude, a fire had been quietly stoked. A fire fueled not by revenge, but by the simple, stubborn knowledge that one day I would stand for myself. I found a small motel on the outskirts of town, cheap, bare, but mine for the night. The first thing I did was sit down, not to plan anything grand, not yet. I just closed my eyes and breathed. Noah, remember this feeling, I whispered. The feeling of walking away from all the chains. You're done being invisible. I pulled out an old notebook, its corners frayed, pages yellowed with years. The same notebook where I'd scribbled guitar lyrics, life thoughts, tiny escape plans during the years I carried everyone else. For the first time in decades, I wrote not for them, not for duty, but for me. I wrote about dreams, plans, the life I had let slip through my fingers while they demanded every ounce of me. I sketched a blueprint of my future, small at first. Practical, get a steady job, Save, move into a place of my own. But already, under the careful handwriting, I could feel ambition stirring. Not loud, not violent, just steady, slow, quiet, unstoppable. That night I slept for the first time without dread. No dad's yelling, no mom's brittle commands, no Derek's smirks or empty threats. The only sound was the soft hum of the motel's old AC, a lullaby of possibility. When I woke, the world felt sharper, clearer. I realized that leaving the trailer wasn't just running away. It was the first step toward reclaiming everything I'd lost. Years of unacknowledged labor, of hidden frustration, of being the family's silent backbone. All of it would finally serve a purpose. And somewhere deep in me, I knew this. I wouldn't just survive. I would thrive. Before I took the first step toward that life, I pulled out my phone. Derek's text still sat there burning. "You'll crawl back." I smiled, a quiet, dangerous smile. He didn't know me. He never had, not yet. The next morning, sunlight poured over the motel room, sharp and unforgiving, a reminder that life waits for no one. I packed my few belongings, a worn backpack, my notebook and my old guitar, and stepped outside. The air smelled of asphalt and distant pine, so different from the diesel and mildew that had clung to my lungs for years. Noah, the invisible backbone, the silent laborer, was now just a man with a plan. I started small. A temp job at the local auto shop, hands greasy, sleeves rolled, earning every cent honestly. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. No lectures, no expectations, no dangling threats of judgment. For the first time, I saw my own reflection, not in a mirror, but in the confidence that began to grow with every paycheck deposited, every problem solved with my own hands. I learned that freedom wasn't just leaving the trailer. It was claiming my own agency. Every night I returned to my notebook. I sketched budgets, wrote down goals. Even small acts of revenge I knew would come one day, subtle, quiet, poetic. I didn't rush. I built slowly, like a craftsman shaping something valuable. Step by step, brick by brick, I wrote. They'll see. They'll all see what they threw away. And though I didn't admit it aloud, every text from Derek, every imagined smirk from Mom, fueled my determination. "You'll crawl back," he had said. I grinned quietly to myself. He didn't know what crawling meant anymore. Not to him, not to them. Weeks passed. I saved, networked, and learned to navigate the world outside their chaos. I rented a tiny studio apartment, nothing fancy but mine. I painted the walls myself, hung a few pictures, made it feel like a place I could breathe in without guilt. The first night in my own space, I strummed my guitar, letting the melody fill the room. No demands, no chaos, no voices telling me I was wasting my life. For the first time, I felt the weight lift. But even as I carved my new life, the memory of the trailer haunted me. The smell of diesel, the cries of the twins, Mom's brittle voice, Dad's judgment, all of it a constant reminder that I had earned every inch of freedom. And I knew deep down that one day, the family that abandoned me would see what I'd built and what they had lost. That night I received another text from Derek. "You'll regret leaving." I stared at it, phone in hand, and laughed quietly. "No, Derek," I whispered to the empty room. "You'll regret letting me go." The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. Noah, once invisible, the scaffolding of a family that never noticed him, was quietly transforming. I woke each morning with a purpose, not with obligations I hadn't chosen. The small auto shop had become more than just a paycheck. I learned the rhythm of the engines, the language of grease-stained hands, the satisfaction of work done right. Every solved problem, every engine that roared to life under my touch, felt like a victory stolen from a past that had tried to keep me down. I didn't just survive, I built. I saved every penny, cut unnecessary expenses, and invested in a few small side gigs, fixing old cars, painting, odd jobs that nobody else wanted. The apartment slowly transformed into a home. Shelves hung, pictures framed, my guitar always within reach. I started meeting people who appreciated me, friends who didn't exploit me, colleagues who respected me. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. And that feeling, small as it was, burned brighter than any resentment I carried. But even as I grew, the trailer and their words haunted me. Mom's brittle muttering, Dad's growly sermons, Derek's smirk. All were ghosts that whispered in the quiet. And the memory of Derek's text still smoldered. "You'll crawl back." I smiled, thinking, they have no idea. No idea what it means to leave behind years of servitude only to rise without them. Noah wasn't crawling anywhere. He was soaring quietly, steadily, unrelentingly. Every small victory built momentum. I bought a better truck, my first real purchase in my life. I started working with local contractors, learning trades I had only glimpsed as a child, running errands for my family. I found pride in labor for myself, not for someone else's chaos. And every day, a tiny voice in my head reminded me, they thought they broke you. They didn't, not yet. One evening, I got a call from a potential client, a small construction project. They'd heard about my work from word of mouth. I laughed softly. Word of mouth. Something my family never gave me, never credited me for. I scheduled the meeting, knowing this was the first real step toward something bigger. And somewhere deep in me, a quiet thrill stirred. This wasn't just survival. This was reclamation. Not loud, not dramatic, just patient, unstoppable, methodical. Back at the trailer, I imagined their lives. Mom still nagging, Dad still judging, Derek still smirking. They didn't know the ground had shifted beneath them. They didn't know Noah, the one they dismissed, exploited and betrayed, and was slowly, quietly building an empire they'd never touch. That night, I sat on my porch with my guitar, watching the city lights glimmer in the distance. A soft wind carried the scent of freedom, pine, and asphalt. I whispered to myself, you'll see soon enough. The world belongs to those who claim it, not those who demand it. And somewhere, far away, I could almost feel the trailer watching me, powerless, as the man they tried to break rose beyond them. By the time winter settled into town, I wasn't just surviving anymore. Noah, the invisible grunt of my family, had become a force they couldn't anticipate. I had a steady income, a small but growing client base, and a reputation for integrity and skill. People respected me, something my parents had never done. And while I didn't seek revenge, the universe had a way of tipping scales in subtle, poetic ways. It started small. A contractor I'd helped months ago called with a project, a renovation, for a wealthy family who needed someone meticulous. I accepted. When I arrived at the site, I realized the project was only a few miles from the trailer. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could see my old neighborhood in the distance, the familiar crooked streets, the trailer park looming like a shadow of my past. And that's when I made my first strategic quiet strike. I took on jobs I knew would eventually intersect with their lives. A plumbing fix here, a roof repair there, always professional, always clean, always leaving behind my mark. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't malice. It was demonstration. Every house I touched, every project completed, proved that I could thrive without them, even flourish. One morning I received a text from Derek. Heard you got a big job nearby. Don't think we didn't notice. I smiled. They were paying attention now. Finally. It felt good. Not because I wanted them to bow, but because their assumptions of my weakness were crumbling. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, a large commercial renovation. It was a multi-month contract, high-paying, with serious recognition in town. I threw myself into the project, working day and night, learning, growing, thriving. Every nail I hammered, every blueprint I corrected, every client compliment I received became a small victory over the years they'd stolen from me. And I knew they would hear about it. Back at the trailer, Mom called me, her voice brittle, a little anxious. Noah, I heard you're busy with that big project downtown. I paused before answering. Yes, Mom, I'm building something. For myself. Her silence said everything. She had no words for the fact that I had grown beyond their grasp. Derek tried again, texting. We'll see how long your streak lasts. I laughed softly. It's not a streak. It's the life I earned. Even Dad started to notice, his growly voice muttering over poker nights. That boy's always been stubborn. Maybe too stubborn. Little did he know that stubbornness had saved me, and now it was my quiet weapon. One evening, I returned from the job site to my apartment, tired but satisfied. I looked out the window at the city lights reflecting on the wet asphalt. The snow had melted into shimmering puddles. I thought about the trailer, the endless chores, the sleepless nights, the years of giving without return. They thought they broke me, I whispered to myself. They thought they owned me. But look who's building now. And that's when I realized the first strike wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, invisible, methodical. My life thriving while theirs remained stagnant. That night I strummed my guitar. The melody carried through the small apartment, soft but insistent. A reminder to myself I am no longer their scaffolding. I am my own foundation. And somewhere, far away, the trailer park sat in quiet chaos. Mom muttered complaints. Dad grumbled over poker cards. Derek smoked in the driveway, fuming. All of them watching, all of them aware and powerless. Weeks passed, and with every day, Noah's world grew brighter, steadier, and fuller. The apartment was now a home, walls adorned with paintings he'd made, books stacked carefully, the scent of coffee and old pine filling the air. Outside, the city buzzed with opportunity. Each honk, each passerby a reminder that the world belonged to those who claimed it, not to those who demanded it. Then came the moment of reckoning. A local newspaper ran a feature about a rising contractor, a young man transforming neglected buildings, earning respect, building a name. I read the article at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm mug. And then I froze. The picture, a simple headshot, confident smile, hard eyes, clearly showed me. Under it, my name, Noah Vaughn, a quiet, indestructible force. And I knew, and far away, they would see it too. Sure enough, within days, the text came. Derek, is this for real? Mom, Noah, this isn't what I expected. Dad, that boy, he's doing something right. Each message was a small confirmation, the first ripple of recognition, the first spark of guilt. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth had already spoken. I walked past the trailer one evening for the first time in months. From the street, I could see them inside. Mom fussing over a meal, Dad muttering at the television, Derek pacing like a caged animal. The trailer looked smaller somehow, tighter, suffocating. And I realized the balance of power had shifted. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I simply watched, calm, knowing that they were finally seeing the man I had become, the one they tried to crush. Later that week, I got an unexpected visitor. A client, an older woman from town who had seen my work on the renovation project. Noah, she said, voice warm, I heard you grew up helping family, raising kids, taking care of everything. You've built something extraordinary. I smiled. I had to learn to build something for myself first, I said. Her eyes widened, admiration and empathy mingling. It was in that moment I understood. Success wasn't revenge. It wasn't rubbing it in. It was living well, authentically, without them. Back at the trailer, the subtle storm of their guilt and curiosity intensified. Mom, who once muttered without care, now glanced toward the street as if expecting me to appear. Derek paced, cigarette forgotten, muttering under his breath. Even Dad, stoic as always, lingered by the window, eyes distant. They had to face it. The boy they dismissed, exploited, and tried to break had built the life beyond them. That night I sat on my porch, guitar in hand. The melody was soft, reflective, powerful, a song I wrote for myself, for the years of unseen labor, for the nights I felt invisible, for the first time owning my story. You thought you could break me, I whispered to the empty street, but you only built the foundation for my rise. And in that quiet moment, I realized something profound. The revelation wasn't just for them. It was for me. I had survived, thrived, and now, silently, gracefully, I had become untouchable. The morning sun broke over the city, painting golden streaks across the apartment walls. Noah stood by the window, hands resting on the sill, looking out at the streets he now called his own. The man who had once carried the weight of a family that never noticed him was no longer invisible. He had built a life on his terms, brick by brick, choice by choice, sweat and patience. The texts and calls from his family had stopped for the most part. Mom's voice was hesitant when it came through. Noah, are you okay? Dad had stopped lecturing, his silence now heavy with guilt. Derek, the once cocky brother, now tread lightly in conversation. None of them dared to challenge me, and none of them truly understood what had happened. I had left, yes, but I had returned, not to the trailer, not to their chaos, but to my life, stronger, unbreakable, and untouchable. The first full taste of poetic justice came unexpectedly. A week later, a contractor called me in for a high-profile commercial project. The site was adjacent to a building owned by my father's distant cousin, a cousin who often boasted about family, loyalty, and control. I arrived early, tools in hand, and worked flawlessly for days. The project's success spread quickly in town. Word traveled back to the trailer before I even knew it. Suddenly, neighbors mentioned my name in passing. Noah Vaughn, the boy they kicked out. He's the one fixing the Johnson building downtown. He's doing amazing work. I could almost feel the heavy silence inside that trailer. Mom's brittle sighs, Dad's muted grumbles, Derek's clenched jaw. For once, I didn't have to say anything. The world was telling them what they refused to see for decades. Then came the visit that changed everything. Mom knocked at my apartment door one chilly evening. Her eyes were wide, a mixture of guilt and awe. "Noah, we didn't realize," she began. I looked at her calmly, the weight of years, toil, and sacrifice reflected in my posture. "You never had to realize, Mom," I said softly. "I just had to live my life." She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Even Derek lingered in the hallway, shuffling uncomfortably, unable to hide the mixture of pride and regret. Dad's eyes, usually cold, softened as he realized that the boy they dismissed, the one they tried to break, had become a man they could neither control nor diminish. Noah didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The victory was not loud or vengeful. It was quiet, undeniable, and permanent. He walked through the apartment, touching the walls he had painted himself, strumming his guitar in the evenings, building his growing client base, feeling the steady pulse of a life he had earned. This was his empire, crafted from freedom, respect, and self-worth. One evening, he received a final message from Derek. You really did it. We were wrong. We underestimated you." I smiled, a calm, quiet smile. "It wasn't about proving you wrong," I whispered. "It was about proving myself right." And in that moment, Noah realized the truth that had eluded him for so long. The trailer, the chaos, the years of unappreciated labor, they hadn't broken him. They had forged him, honed him into someone unstoppable, someone respected, someone free. The night settled around the city, and I strummed my guitar, letting the melody carry through my apartment. The hum of streetlights, the distant murmur of cars, and the soft scent of pine from a nearby park blended into a symphony of triumph. "You thought you could crush me," I whispered to the empty room. "But you only built the foundation for my rise." Noah's gaze lingered on the skyline. The trailer, the voices, the ghosts of his past, they were far behind him now. And for the first time in decades, he felt complete peace. The family that had once tried to cage him had no power over this man anymore. Not through words, not through judgment, not through neglect. He had survived, thrived, and claimed the life that was always his. To anyone listening, maybe someone tried to keep you small. Maybe they didn't see your worth. Noah's story is proof. Sometimes, the quietest path, the patient rebuilding of your life, is the strongest revenge of all. If this story inspired you, remember to subscribe. Share it, because we all deserve to rise beyond what tries to hold us down.